You already touched on one of them, which has to do with actual education. I mean, if you have the difference between sharing your education with people in order to make the sciences user-friendly, applicable, is completely different than sharing your marketing expertise in order to sell something. Typically a consumable repeat product, or a repeat consumable, if you will. Typically bottles, boxes, bags, and cans of something. This is a completely different approach if what you're doing for a living, because the dollar definitely plays a part. When I got out of medical school, people said to me, I had 12 different doctors come up to me within 2 years of my graduation from school, put their hands around me at various seminars, quietly in back rooms or hallways, just to let me know, Doug, you know a lot about this health thing, and it's nice to bring health to people, but you do understand that you can't make a living teaching health, right? Make sure you keep your day job. You can't make a living. Well, I mean, that's all somebody had to do is tell me I can't. 12 different people tell me I can't. Watch out. But now there are actually a lot of people making a living in the raw food movement, and most of them don't have a lot of training. They don't. They've got excitement and enthusiasm, and I'm all in favor of that. And most of them have studied marketing skills, and that's all fine. And I'm not against anybody else out there. I just keep my focus on what I'm in favor of. But I think that when I send a message out in the world that I'm not in favor of certain things, or I am in favor of certain things that other people perceive as a threat to their marketing force, heels get dug in, basically. And I think that, is there anyone in the audience? We're speaking to an empty room. Is there anyone in the audience who likes being wrong? Who likes the finger pointed out? Who likes it when people make a point of showing you that you are wrong in public? I mean, yeah, we like learning from being wrong, fine, okay, we can all embrace that. But typically we don't like when our mistakes or our flaws are pointed out to the public. We'd rather be a private learning session, please, far better. If in fact, and we've all had the experience with the grocery cart, you know, you look at somebody's grocery cart and you're aghast, and they look at your grocery cart and they ask you how many monkeys do you own, or they make some other leap of conclusion, right? You must be a very healthy person. I go, actually, I'm stressed like crazy, and things are going really badly in my life. I haven't slept in months, and I've lost my job. I just eat well. It's different than being a healthy person. So they jump to a conclusion nonetheless. I don't think there's anyone in the raw food movement who has defined their glass house, whatever it might be, and then wants to turn around and go, well, actually, Doug Brown pretty much owns the science, and in terms of science, whole fish right raw 80-10-10 makes the most sense that could possibly be. We were just looking for something to sell you. So please buy our dehydrated, whatever it is. Nobody wants to go there. I don't blame them. I wouldn't want to go there. I count myself as lucky. I literally count myself as lucky. I was excited about raw foods, and I didn't say anything about it. I didn't put anything in print until I've been doing raw foods for 10 years. It was a long, by then, when I finally got something in print in 1988, and since then, everything that's come out is congruent with what I started with. And that was just dumb luck, really, because I didn't know where I was going at the time. I really didn't. I mean, I didn't start defining 80-10 until the late 80s. I mean, I didn't put a name on it until the late 90s. I didn't know where it was going. So it was really smart luck. But I think that most people would feel egg on their face if they had to change horses. And you know what? I mean, when computers came, how many people went to school in the age of slide rules? Had to have one, weren't allowed to. Well, I was at the cusp, right? I was at the point where you weren't allowed to have calculators by the time the next generation came in, you had to have calculators. But you know what, slide rule people, they're not in a very good business these days. They kind of, what's a slide rule? You think they still make them? They went out of business, and it wasn't a big deal. They just went out of business. A whole new business came in. And I think it's going to be the same way. 80-10-10 is going to grow. 80-10-10 is the only growing portion of the raw food movement. Raw food movement's growing, and just as many people getting out as getting in, but 80-10-10 is growing and growing and growing. And it's kind of interesting to see. It's my opinion why.
What time is it?
We have 15 minutes.
Awesome.
We're right on track.
So blended foods. Blended foods. I want to ask about blended foods because I want to. Did you talk about that with your group?
No, blended foods is a wash as far as I'm concerned. You blend foods, you destroy some nutrients, no question. The longer you blend them, the more the antioxidants are affected. The water, there's just as much water as when you started. There's just as much fiber as when you started. There's just as many minerals unaffected as when you started. If somebody tells you that you lose 80 to 90 or 92 or whatever number of percent of nutrients by blending foods, this is absolutely misleading information. There may be a nutrient that if you turn on the blender, walk away, go answer the phone, take a bath, go pick up your kids at school, come back, go, oh my God, I forgot to turn off the blender. You know, that there may be something like an antioxidant, some micronutrient that has lost 92% of it. You know, it's been cooked out, oxidized, completely gone. But there's going to be just as much water as, except for the stuff that boiled off, because if it was a Vitamix, you actually brought it to a full boil by this time. But basically, you know, if you use a blender like most people do, turn it on, blend, turn it off, it doesn't usually take much longer than that. Essentially what happens is you make a phenomenal number of nutrients accessible that typically would not be because you would not chew as well as you blend. Okay, so don't chew too fast and don't chew too long because you're starting to mimic a blender at that point. Just take the apple and swallow it. You know, there's obviously diminishing returns.
This is not medical advice.
No, this is not medical advice. There's obviously diminishing returns at both ends. I tend to think of it as a wash. I think you release a lot of nutrients that otherwise would not be available, but you may, in the process, destroy it. I honestly think that nutrition is not worth. Brian Clement said an interesting thing a couple of days ago. He said that calories were a dead issue. And it's something we're going to discuss quite a bit over the upcoming months. And we'll hear more about that. I think nutrition is pretty much a dead issue. We're eating the best foods available. We don't really need to be worrying about nutrition. I think that's a lot of hoo-ha about nothing. It's a cooked food problem that's being brought over to the raw world. Come on, if you're eating a diet that's predominated by fruits and vegetables, does it really matter whether you cut it with a metal knife, a glass knife, a ceramic knife, a wooden knife? I mean, a blender or not? I don't think it matters. I think we're eating the most nutritious foods there are. The people who need to be worried about nutrition are the people who haven't yet converted over. People who are sitting at McDonald's eating lunch today, those are the ones who need to be worried, not us.
And I think it needs to be clarified, fruits and vegetables.
Fruits and vegetables are not only the original health foods and the only recognized health foods, they're also the superior foods, and they are hence the superfoods of all time, fruits and vegetables. It's rather interesting, I find. Like, I wrote something about raw foods on the International Vegetarian Union Science Board. I'm a member of their science board. I wrote something one time, I saw an opening and I took it for raw foods. I got back hundreds of emails putting down raw foods, going, come on, Doug, I mean, raw foods? You mean a diet of fat and grass? That'll never work. I wrote back and I tried to save the day. No, I meant not that raw food diet, I meant fruits and vegetables. But by then the decision had already been made. It took about 3 years before I was brave enough to say something again. And I saw an opening of, oh, here's a great place to promote raw foods. I said something about the raw food diet. And I got back from around the world, various doctors writing back to me. And they're all going, raw foods, that'll never work. A diet of supplements, condiments, stimulants, and irritants? Come on, Doug, get real. Let's go. Cooked vegan is the way. And I'm going, no, it doesn't make sense.